Hello, and thank you for coming back once again. It's Greg from Bug Out Gear Layouts and Tactics, a Facebook prepping site, and UrbanSafetySurvival.net. First off, let me say I hope everybody had a good holidays. I did take off last Friday for the New Year's. So this week I want to talk about surviving in an urban area after an SHTF situation, right? This is real big in the prepping community. The minute somebody says they live in an urban area, everybody's response is get out of the cities now. Get out. You have to get out before it gets bad. Well, you know what? What happens if they can't get out? Let's say they have financial reasons why they can't leave. Maybe family reasons they can't leave, right? So they may be reasons people can't get out of the city. They can't get out of large metropolitan areas or urban areas. The other big thing, I see it here all the time in New Jersey. Everywhere is being developed. So as the rate of rent in New York City rises, I believe now the average rent for a one bedroom apartment is like $5,600 a month, right? So guess what's happening? Those people that even can afford that, but they don't want to pay that, so they're moving to areas outside of New York City. Jersey City, Hoboken, Weehawken, Carteret, South Amboy. These towns are now experience a large influx of people that are navigating out of New York City. So what happens? They come in, the rents go up, people can't afford it, they're pushed out. Also, urban sprawl, right? So during the nice spring and summer months, I ride with my motorcycle group. We usually meet up at a local Wawa. Everybody meets there. We have our cup of coffee. We do our safety briefing, and then we ride. Well, next to that Wawa, it had a very large open area that was just a bunch of trees. Well, it's no longer just a bunch of trees. It is now a townhouse complex. So a bunch of people that moved out of the New York City area, looking for cheaper places, now areas that were suburban or beyond the suburban area but not quite rural have now started to see a lot of development. So people may not be able to leave. Again, if you're leaving the city, you're going into other areas, and guess what? That makes those other areas highly populated as well, right? So we have to think of other ways you can survive in an urban area. To me, do I think it's possible? I sure do think it's possible. One thing I like to think of is it's an old 1991 movie, I believe it was. It's called New Jack City. What happened, the theme of that movie is there was a drug syndicate came in, took over an apartment complex, and basically fortified it. It was called the Carter in the movie. It's the style of building is very popular in urban areas. It's so for that building, it was a block wide, but it didn't encompass the whole block. So it went from one street to one street, and then on this side to this side, it took up a portion of the block, and then on the other side there was houses. But in the middle, it had a large center courtyard. Just thinking of how they did something like that, right? It's going to take a large group. It's not going to be one or two people that can do it. It's going to take a large group to do it. But what they did was they fortified it. They controlled access into and out of. They created choke points. They created everything to make it defendable and make it harder Again, it's a movie, but it was for when the police came in, they couldn't get in, right? It was one of those crack era drug locations. The building still exists, right? It's not like they made it for the movie, that they filmed it at the building. That building still exists today, but there's a lot of buildings in urban areas that are like that. As you can see here, I know it's kind of small. This is the building from the movie. This is an aerial view, and these are some other buildings. So this is New York City. This one's Hoboken. This one's Jersey City. You see, they're large buildings. The one in Hoboken and the one in Jersey City encompass the whole block, corner to corner. But they have those large open areas in the middle, those courtyards. Another type that's very, very popular nowadays in urban areas, it's the ones where it's same style, but that ground level is not apartments. It's usually the office to the building, one or two entryways into the building for the tenants, towards the elevators, the mailboxes, and then usually the rest is an indoor parking garage. Right, large urban areas have problems with parking, so most new developments have to encompass parking to build for the residents of that building. So the one in Hoboken had a courtyard, it had a playground, it had greenery. The one in Jersey City, from what I can see from Google, it had a pool, it had the greenery, but again, that first floor was parking area, so none of the residents live on street access. So that first area is parking garage, one way into the parking garage, one way out, controlled access point. On one block they would have an entrance, on the other block they would have an entrance, and you can get through in the middle. That's a perfect scenario for urban fortification, right? If you can control the entry, if you can fortify the garage, again, in a long-term SHTF scenario, you're not going to have fuel. So if you could control that, you'd have, again, greenery. They all seem to have flat roofs, which, again, raised garden beds if you can get them and make them. The pool is a water source. Think rain catchment. Again, it's not like it's going to be able to be done by a small group. It's something that, in all honesty, if you're going to take the whole building, everybody would have to be on board. So the thing would be, can you provide the safety for the residents? Can you provide what they need for them to be in sync with you and on the same page? Okay, we're not going nowhere. This is where safety is going to be. Let's get this done, and let's defend ourselves. The other situation is if you were a large group and you came upon a building like that was abandoned. Let's say everybody ran for it. Everybody head for the hills, or like everybody says is, I'm going to go run to the woods and live off the land. Without proper training, you're not running into the middle of the woods to live off the land. One of the things we learned from the Great Depression, when deer and other game were hunted to almost extinction in certain areas, because that's what people did to survive. Our population is a lot bigger now than what it was then. Don't think that's going to happen. But, if you don't have that wilderness training, how to live off the land, not every mushroom's edible. So, that's not going to be the right thing for a lot of people, even though a lot of people plan that. Again, if you was a group that came across that and you can clear every hiding spot building wide and was able to fortify it, it'll give you a better chance. One thing I say is in a large-scale SHTF scenario where it runs an extended period of time in an urban area, you have to think of outside sources of meat protein, and they might not be what everybody thinks. Doing some research for some writing I was doing, the rat population in New York City has hit 3 million. Right? Hold on, let me double check that. Yep, 3 million. So that's almost a third of the human population in New York City. And they're not number one with rat population. That one goes to Chicago. But think of it. That's maybe the only meat you can get in an urban area. Squirrel, rat, pigeon. That would be something you would have to decide. But again, if you had a building like the Carter, and everybody was on board, everybody prepped, or everybody could get together and defend it, that'd be one way to survive in an urban area. Because again, not everybody can leave the cities for whatever reason. These are just some tactics. You may have warehouses, again, where you could control access in and access out. It's only one point. You're able to create choke points. Many years ago, I worked in a warehouse, and we had security, we had gates, we had, there was basically that fatal funnel to get in and out, and that was it. That may be something that's feasible, defendable if you have an area to maybe grow food, create a water catchment, rain catchment system for water. But it's going to be hard, but I think you can survive in an urban area if you had the right conditions, the right shelter, the right people with you in your group. Again, it's not going to be easy, but not everybody can leave, so that may be your only bet. So we have to do what we have to do if that's the situation for us and you can't leave the city. Again, there's other YouTube pages that talk about putting stuff in storage units. There's always caches that you can do. We talk about if you're bugging out and you don't have a place to bug out to, you're just a glorified refugee. You can't take everything with you. So it's something to think about. It's something to discuss. Because like I said, not everybody can get out of the city now. So we have to think of ways that we can survive in that urban environment if that's the environment you live in. The other topics that I see discussed a lot is, I don't have the finances. It's hard living on a fixed income, to start prepping. Where do I start? You start 1 or 2 cans extra every time you go shopping. Staples, rice, beans, canned foods. That's how you start. Again, we just want to do what we can to survive. So it's something that has to be thought about. You have to think outside the box with this one. Before I end, I would like to say thank you to everybody that subscribed over the last 2 to 3 weeks. I thank you for the views. I thank you for subscribing. So please like and subscribe to the channel. And you can catch us at Bug Out Gear Layouts and Tactics, a prepping site Facebook page, and you can catch me at urbansafetysurvival.net. Thank you for your time, and have a good night, people.